Welcome to our 8-day mini course, How to Find and Write the Story Your Heart is Most Hungry For. Our aim here is just to help you guys get ready to write your most important stories. And as you know, yesterday we talked about how to find that story that you have to write. And now we're going to dive into should it be fiction or true story, memoir, that kind of thing. We're just going to have a loose discussion on that. But of course, before we dive in, for all of you that are the new folks, just want to say I'm Holly Payberg-Torroija. I am a writer, producer, and former development exec who has now found my deep passion for coaching writers. And as I told you yesterday, when I say coaching writers, I mean coaching writers as a lifestyle, not just teaching them to write. I mean, altering their whole approach to creativity where they learn to actually love the process. Because my theory is if you can learn to love the process and not escape that, you can absolutely do your best work. So that has become my mission. And I teamed up with this amazing human uh, recently, who I'll let introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Carlin-McCall. I am an author, a performer, which I love that I put that first because it's not what I've been doing first the last 7 years, but it is the heart of who I am. So that's why I always say it first. And because I fought hard, damn it, to be an author and a performer. And I am also the founder of Humans on the Verge, where we help people to go deep into their soul life and figure out what the fuck are they doing with it. That's my new ankle show pitch for my business. I'm just kidding. But yeah,
Doing.
I do multiple things. I've got my master's in depth psychology. I from Pacifica Graduate Institute. I'm a certified coach, practicing Buddhist in the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition, and just an all-around seeker and curious person about how do we tick and why, and someone who knows that story is the most healing thing on earth, whether we tell it or we listen to them. It is what makes us human, and it's what brings our humanity forth. So very excited to have partnered with Holly to do this work with writers. Very excited. And I'm doing the memoir, personal storytelling silo of the writing program that we lead throughout the year and in these events. So that is
Yep,
me.
and I'm focusing on the fiction. So this discussion together today is perfect. We both have opinions on this. But yeah, so let's get started on that, the discussion of what with your story, what should it be? Fiction or memoir or true story and all that stuff. And we just have a bunch of topics around that to get you thinking. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just to get you thinking about it. And I just right off the top want to just say that all of it is true. Like even the most elaborate sci-fi fiction needs to have deep, deep truth in it. In fact, comedy needs to have truth 12 times over to really ground it into something that matters. So it's all true. But then there's different paths you can take on, I guess you would genre. I don't know if you would call that genre,
Yeah.
whether it's, yeah. Um, to think about of whether you're going to label it, a true story or whether it's fiction. So so the two things I think you got to ponder, there's really based on the story itself, you could look at it from that angle, or you can base it on who you are as a person. So we'll dive deep into both of those angles. First, Kelly, we'll just start with maybe the story dictates whether it's true or fiction. Like, is it one of those kinds of stories that people would benefit from knowing is true? Like it's just so unbelievable or so moving or so brave or something to that fact that adding that next layer of saying, "Oh my God, did you know it's a true story?" Um, actually creates sort of that impact, or would the story be constrained by having to adhere to actual events too heavily? Like, could the story be better if it was just inspired by, and then you could go wild with, I don't know, your own ending. thoughts, Kelly. Um,
Ah, yes. The word true is tricky. I get with people a lot who say to me, I really want to write my memoir or my stories, but I don't have a full memory of everything.
mm,
And they get very worried. It's like, what happens if I can't remember, and trust me, I could not remember a lot of my childhood. But I could remember moments, and I could remember the emotional truth. So really, when we talk about true, we're talking about emotional truth here,
mm,
human emotional truth. What's true to us, what resonates with us, what's important, what's essential, what's the part of our story, whether it's going to be written in fiction or in more personal story memoir genres. What's the part of the story that um, is the truth of what happened? And
mhm,
how did you get there? And how did the character you, because you become a character even in memoir, because as we know, I mean, I was trained as a therapist. In some ways, this construction of a person is a fiction. And that's kind of, and when you write a memoir, I talked about this yesterday, you can't write every moment of your life. So you are picking and choosing scenes and plot and storyline. You are putting a plot onto your life that resonates with the truth of your life. So no matter what, you are telling a true story. And in fiction, as Holly knows, the fun about that is you are completely unconstrained by this body, this historical period,
mhm,
this timeline, and the constraints of historical events in your own life, you know.
mhm,
Uh, and one thing I think I love what you said earlier, Holly, about, that there's something about the power of it being a quote true story for people,
mhm.
is that people take it in differently,
They
and
do.
it gives them permission for something more than fiction does.
Mhm,
And for me, writing a memoir was connected to helping people have permission in their
mhm.
own life to speak their truth, live their truth, but also to see that their family was just like my family, even though my family was quote unquote special to them. So there's for me, there was a permission. There's probably
Yeah.
25 other reasons for memoir, but there is something about that true story aspect that lets people know, oh, we're all humans here,
Mhm.
and you're not crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. And some stories again, like when you're looking at your stories, some stories don't need that.
Hmm.
Um, and some stories do, and so you have to use your gut on that, so to speak, to figure out which story needs it. But there's another layer to look at, which I alluded to, and that is you also want to look at who you are as a person and as a creative. And we talked about that yesterday with Kelly. I don't even, and I told you I don't like to talk about the end product anytime soon, but there is a reality of if you are writing to eventually want to be out there, you do need to think a little bit about what you're willing to be, what is your path? Are you someone that's a Brene Brown or um, Glennon Doyle or a Kelly Carlin, that is willing to let they're living their life out loud. They're way showers. They're living as an example. Their story is something that people get intrigued by because, they can see themselves in it in the story. And then when you get to the sales part of it, the very real part where you're out there promoting, you've got to be someone that is fine with being that open book.
Yeah, it is a level of vulnerability
Mm-hmm.
that is, I think, um, was part of, and still is, because I'm still learning to be vulnerable in public,
Mm-hmm.
is part of it's part of your, and I'm going to say this, I know you might not know what I mean by this, but in some ways it's part of your ultimate life healing
Yeah.
and your soul path
Yeah.
is to learn to be vulnerable in public. That by doing that, not only will you personally gain from some sort of ability to not hide yourself anymore, but that it is also a way shower. Like Holly said, you are showing other people that it's okay to be real and to take the mask off in public. That
Hmm.
is an aspect of it. And uh, with the way, if you were to, if your aim is to fully publish this, whether with a publisher or self-publish it, even with a publisher, it is your job to market this thing. I mean,
It is.
publishers give you this much support these days. It is not like the old days anymore. And I was lucky I had a name attached to mine, so I got some access to some mainstream media and stuff. But the point I'm making about that is that you are being yourself out loud.
Yeah.
And if that's something you already do anyway, because you are a performer type, Sally and I were talking about that yesterday. We are people who like to get on a stage and say, hey, me, this is my life and this is what I'm talking about. Um, and that doesn't mean that's the level of vulnerability or openness you need to have, but you are going to be someone whose family, friends, and the world
We're gonna know.
is going to know about your inner life more.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, kind of my mission in life is that that's really important. So I'm like, go for it all the time with people. Like, fuck yes, we need more people to say, hey, this is me. I'm broken in this way, because that's always going to come out in memoir. And for me, I did it to really to humanize my dad, and it worked. I
Yeah.
ended up
Well,
I ended up winning an Emmy because of it. So there you go.
and we need to distinguish one thing about that. That doesn't mean you're ready for that today.
Oh, right. Exactly. Thank you, Holly.
The whole process makes
Process.
you ready.
Yeah. And it'll be
Eventually.
a multiple year process.
Yeah, it would, but there's, for you, it might occur as, yes, it scares the shit out of me, but somewhere deep inside, I know, no, my thing is to find the courage to live out loud like that and free and to not worry about what anyone thinks about my
And
story.
mine was a 25-year process. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm going to be really, really fucking open about that. And
yeah,
I'm still, my spirituality and my depth psychology work and all of that is still, that's what my next book is about. And that's still me saying, hey, I've got another layer to me too. Oh, people who might judge me. But yeah, but this is the thing that I love to do and why I created Humans on the Verge is because that's
hmm
ultimately the work I do, which is help people discover the parts of themselves that have always felt too vulnerable to be lived out loud.
hmm
But we come to a point in life where we cannot ignore that anymore. And we have to let that part of ourselves live out loud. And I've helped people like Holly go
me.
from Hollywood to this work because this is really who she is. But
Yeah.
she was afraid to be this in Hollywood because Hollywood wouldn't, there wasn't a real space for her, in that way. So, but that's why I love this work, and that's why I think personal storytelling is such a powerful healing process too,
Yeah.
because it's not therapy in a sense, but it is therapeutic.
Very therapeutic. Yeah, Hollywood. Yeah, and by the same token, obviously, I've always chose to write fiction my whole life. And I think, a lot of my choice in that was uh, because a lot of what I found interested in writing about actually was my observations around the world. A lot of and things would just come to me as a story. That was just always how things would come. They would come as a story, and I got very fascinated with the dynamics of characters, and and I was always in love with comedy. I mean, like you can look at like if you have a genre that you've just always fallen in love with, chances are there's a reason for that. If you just obsessed with sci-fi or you're obsessed with, and I was obsessed with Norman Lear comedies since I was little. It was like because, and I don't know how I knew this. I was, 9. I'm realizing back now in my adult brain, I'm like, wait a minute. But I clearly remember understanding what he was doing. I'm like, oh, I see what he's doing. And
Wow.
he's using comedy, and I was in love with him for that. Like, I was like, you know, he was bringing people together, which was my jam, you know, and he was showing them themselves. And so then, you know, and then seeing all the comedians and all that stuff and the way they would, to me, they were great alchemists. They would take the worst things in the world and spin them into something that, you know, you could laugh at. And I was like, that is, I mean, that's a superpower. That is amazing. And so all those things were my influences that had me wanting to be like them, and show people stuff that could be, you know, because comedy can do that, sometimes when it, or any fiction can do that, where it sort of sneaks in. It's a little bit of a sneak attack. You're like, oh, I'm just watching this person, you know, in a space vehicle with so and so. But no, it's this deep story about a father and son. It just sneak attacks in there. You know, and I was always interested in that, and just fell in love with the crafting of it. So it's like whatever you feel sort of naturally, you know, leaning towards is probably what you're gonna be best at. It doesn't mean you will do that forever. You might morph. I might write a memoir at some
Yeah, I
point,
mean, look at
but
Anne Lamott and Elizabeth Gilbert, both novel writers,
hmm.
and also profound personal storytelling writers too. And Elizabeth is about to come out with another memoir type book, which just
Hmm.
looks amazing, crushing, can't wait. Um, you know what? Also, the fiction writers. You know, I've got a screenplay I've worked on for about 20 years. Never, have not finished it because I wasn't cooked enough to finish it. But it came with a character. It came with a scene, an opening of a scene of a woman waking up on her 50th birthday, Beverly Hills woman, and her Latina maid comes in. It's all very Beverly Hillsy, 1980s, 90s Beverly Hills, and sees that she's weeping. And it's because she's lived an unlived life and she's been this
Hmm.
candy on the arm of her husband, but she comes from a long line of painters and she gave up her painting for this life. And and it's very much my story in some way. It's like, you know, me choosing to be obsessed with Hollywood and fame myself in some ways, and that's success and that's legit. Um, and the creative, vulnerable, you know, and so, but it came in the form of a character, and I still love this woman in this character, and she
Hmm.
still lives in me. And I've not finished her story because I am finishing it in my life. But sometimes that's the way it comes. It comes like that, and a character will not leave you alone.
Exactly.
And that means you need to honor that character's story because it is, I see it psychologically, depth psychology, as a visitation.
Yeah, it's your
Um,
way shower.
it's your way shower and it's your soul saying, I need to tell this story in some way. And sometimes it'll haunt you for 20 years, like mine is mine. And other times, like Elizabeth Gilbert tells the story of coming up with an idea for a novel and she never worked it. And then she says, you know, these ideas, sometimes if they really need to be born into the world, they'll move on to the next writer, which is
Hmm.
scary because it's like,
Yes.
no, don't leave me. And then she had a talk with Anne Patchett one day. They met, and Anne Patchett began to describe her new novel to her, which was about a pharmaceutical company going down into the jungles of Brazil or somewhere like that, and there being a an illicit affair. And Elizabeth Gilbert looked at her and said, "That was the outline of the novel that I was going to write 3 years ago, but I gave up on."
Wild.
I mean, like word for word, you guys, insane. So.
So,
So so I'm not saying that yours is necessarily going to walk away, but if you do not honor it,
yeah,
it may.
a
So
hundred
you need to
percent.
honor it.
Well, and like you said, sometimes I think, like again on the fiction side, sometimes a story comes in, and when you first, you're like, where did that even come from? Like you said, you know, like, but yet it's giving you the opportunity to explore something in the hypothetical, that you're not
Yes.
getting to explore in your own life.
Mm.
And man, writing a story, I mean, you really have to explore that thing. You explore that idea to its nth degree. And yeah, I've had a few of those stories where uh, afterwards I was like, oh, that was prophetic. And it yet gave me the chance to explore something I needed to explore before I was ready to explore it in real life. But it was a great story just in and of itself. So, I mean, there's so many, and yeah, I also to some of my writers, I have said this, I have experienced a few people that thought they were coming in to write memoirs. Um, and then what happened is that they're like, well, that's not true, and that's not true. And suddenly the story would keep getting like smushed down. Um, and I'm like, okay, if we employed a little imagination, if we just let it be whatever you want it to be, and I realized because they in their minds were thinking true story, they wouldn't let the story thrive. And that it was only and it was a lot of times because they were protecting some of the people in their mind's eye that were the other people in the story. Like they still had a need to protect the characters or their main character themselves or whatever, and that if they went ahead and let it be fiction, it could be more free.
Hmm.
And so that's the other question to ask yourself. In what medium will you be more free with it? Is it because and more true? Because like Kelly and I were saying, it's all needs to be true. It's just, fiction, it's couched. The truth is couched a bit, whereas it's in your, all out there.
Yeah, and I think, I would ask people to lean more towards memoir if the story you want to tell is one that um, would help other people to understand how to walk through some
Mhm,
similar circumstance, or if your story is affected by um, the culture in some way and is a story that's about not just your journey, but it's a bigger story about um, uh, culture, systems, things like that. There's a lot of people who write about their health scare
mhm,
and their encounter with death and or the thoughts of not surviving, or moving through a type of relationship, being a witness to something. There's a great memoir, can't remember the name of it, about a woman who ended up marrying a prisoner in a penitentiary. Like it's, and the fact that it's quote unquote true, it'd be a very interesting fictional book, but she's a good writer and she had a very interesting take and she was very thoughtful. And it just was like fascinating, but a world I had never entered into, but loved reading about it because it was like, wow, anything, and all characters, whether they're you or a fictional character, it's all about always the character coming to some crossroads
mhm.
and making a choice and making another choice and making another choice. It's all about kind of truth and consequences, right?
Oh,
It's
and
that's
where
what
it
it's
gets
about.
to.
And so, and this conversation about fiction or memoir can certainly be had with Holly and I privately. If
Mhm,
you come in, when you come into the year-long program, if you're coming into it or if you're in it now, and even if you want to change gears or something,
mhm.
this is a great conversation to have. And it's okay to hang out in one direction.
Yeah, some of my students have done that. They
And
start
and I
one
think
way
you
and
do
then
have to do that. And
yeah.
you have to give whatever it is, your first urge a shot
Yeah.
and then see, well, if I am hitting a wall, what is the wall about? Is it maybe better that it goes from true to fiction or from fiction to true even, So there's that. There's because this is not just about um servicing the story and the reader ultimately, but this is about also your growth as a human being in this process. As for
Absolutely.
me, that's I hold
Well,
that.
you can't separate the writer from the writing. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's your point was perfect. It's exactly why I find myself saying ridiculous things like, well, you can't know what you know until you know it.
Well, and that's just true. I mean, not if we could know it all right now, boy, the world would be different, wouldn't it?
I would
And
re
it's and
It
it
needs
is
a
the
rewrite.
it does. It does. Boy, see now that's the fun thing. Yeah, Bob's always doing those rewrites for us in
Revisions.
my house here. Um, but that is also it, is that, and this is why Holly's program is so powerful, is because it really is about process, because we would love to just know the answers to everything and be at the product, the end point. But that is not what, at any way, what life is about. Life is about endless micro discovery in
Mhm,
every moment of our day, but also not only discovering new, but remembering what we actually really do know
mhm.
and who we actually are. And I think that's the gift of being a creative, is you get to deepen into a process and be in a safe cavern with other writers the way we do it. And then you get to really stay in that space where you get to be in relationship with the rediscovery and the discovery of truth.
Amen. Well, have we waxed on enough? Should we
I
let
think so. We've
them
done a half
in
hour.
on
I'm
the
gonna
tr
stop the live thing, and then you're gonna stop the recording here. I'll be right back.
Okay, yeah, and for those that are listening to this recording, we'll just say real quick, if you are we are enrolling for a year-long program
Oh
starting
yeah, let's do that really quick. Put up your slide just for the
oh,
people who aren't here, just so they can see the slide.
put up the slide. Oh, there it
Put up,
is. I have to
cue the
find it.
slide. Cue the slide.
Slide.
And then like a dancing girl comes out. Nee, 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 nee. Ta-da! The slide.
And
There you
bear the rest of you that have heard this whole spiel, bear with us because we don't
But
know.
but it's not just a spiel, because it really is, and I'm going to slowly read these points out loud for those of who auditory is important. So first of all, we have a year-long program, and if you are interested in the year-long program, like we did yesterday, put your name in our chat here live on Zoom and let us know. I'd love to talk about the year-long program. And if you're here on my beautiful YouTube channel, thank you for being here and watching this. You can put it in the comments, and we'll circle back around,
Yeah, we'll find
and
you.
we'll find you. Um, but we are starting our year-long program in the middle of this month, which is September 19th through the 21st. It's what we call our writing retreat weekend. You will not be on Zoom the whole time, just letting you know that, because nobody wants to do that. That is a
Nobody,
form of torture.
including
And
us.
trust me, including us. But like I explained yesterday to those of you who are here, how we do it is we start with a little connecting Friday night. We give some prompts. We go and we do a little bit of that. But mostly what it is we have Holly has these incredible pre-recorded prompts. We go off, we do our private writing a couple of times each day, but then we come back after doing that private writing, and we unpack it with each other, and unpack it by just talking about what we're discovering, just talking about and just unpacking it all. So we I've done 3 of these retreats with her now as a student client, and I will say that the one that we did on the villains last spring changed my life significantly as a human, not so much as a writer, but as a human, because we do both the personal storytelling and the fiction side, always with these two silos. When we do these retreats, I handle the personal, she handles the fiction. So here's here's how you know if this weekend, which here's the deal, if you're not quite sure you want to do the full year with us yet, which is totally understandable if you don't know us. I mean, come do the weekend, because then you can kind of dip into it and think, oh, okay, this is how I like this. I like this form of the writing. I like this form of coaching. I like this form of community. You'll know right away whether
You
this
will,
is for you
yeah.
or not. But this particular retreat right now, this one that we're doing, Breaking the Story, which we're not like going to take a sledgehammer to your story. I'm just letting you know, take that image out of your
Yeah, no, we
mind.
don't do that.
We're doing beats. It is an outline, a beat sheet is what we call it, right? So it's a basic loosey goosey outline.
And
So
understanding the major theme too, like
and
yeah.
then pulling the theme out of it. What is
Hmm.
this about? A relationship? Is this about just self-discovery? Whatever it is.
Hmm.
So if you are looking, if you've got something in your hand that you're like, oh, this thing's tapping at my shoulder, and you do want some help around some clarity around the major theme and the pivotal moments, this is what we're going to hand you. This is going to be our outcome at the end of the weekend. You're going to have a lot more clarity about those two things. And nothing is carved in stone, just so you know, calm that part of your brain down. Also, if you have been looking for a reason to like tell everyone to go fuck off for a whole weekend so you can write,
So you can focus.
this is a great excuse for it. Hey, I paid $500 to be in this thing. You people go screw off. I'm going to go do this thing. And let me tell you, it helps when you pay a little bit of money for this because you will focus, which is
Yes, you
awesome.
will.
This is how we make the ego actually focus. Um, and here's the other thing too, which is at some point you may be completely motivated and feel great and all of that, but as we all know, the inner critic at some point shows up, the doubter shows up. And this is a way for you to work with that even during the weekend to see how it might sneak in. We are experts at this part of the coaching. This is
Especially
actually,
when you're doing the plot point weekend like this, because the brain just, oh my God, it goes nuts. Now you're tamping down your story and it's like, "Nah." Yeah,
yes, it's you're corralling ideas, and some
it
some some
fights
part
it.
of you is going to come in and tell you you're crazy, it's a waste of time, whatever it is. Um, And it's really about learning how to be held accountable and keep momentum. So it's a practice of a weekend of that, of being in momentum and being accountable to a group, showing up at the schedule, which is really what the writing and the story needs. It needs the kindergarten teacher to tell you when it is nap time, when it is storytelling time in the corner, when it is snack time, and when it is finger painting time. Otherwise, we're just a bunch of kindergartners running around doing whatever the hell we want. We do need a little bit of structure, kind structure, and Holly is beautiful at holding that. I do that too, but that. So
She
that's
is also, yes.
yes, thank you. So that's the spiel for this. It's a great toe dipper if you're not quite all in yet. But we believe 100% in this work. This work is so
Well,
powerful.
we do it. I do it every time. I'll be doing it along with
Me
everybody.
too.
I
I'll be
use
doing it too. I'm working
stories.
on my memoir this year. So I'm going to go over to YouTube for a minute and undo the live thing, and you're going to
Okay,
let me
perfect.
carry
And
on here.
then, so thank you all that were watching on YouTube. And for you guys, we get to do Q&A now.